Hello and welcome to episode 171 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, the shipping industry has agreed to get to net zero by 2050. Pirates everywhere are being asked not to set ships on fire after pillaging them.
Scientists in China are experimenting with plastic sheets and using them to cover up glaciers to stop them from melting. If this proves successful, Chinese leaders plan to use the plastic sheets to cover up human rights violations.
Microsoft is planning to power its servers with small nuclear reactors. Don't worry, a cartoon paperclip will talk you through any emergencies. But the blue screen of death, well, it actually means death.
Researchers at Caltech have successfully demonstrated solar power based in space. The power is beamed down to Earth via microwave radiation. This paves the way for their ultimate goal, using precision spy satellites to microwave a burrito. Imagine the convenience.
And also this week's show, electric mosquito device review. Travel woes continue for some EV vacationers. Charging more for parking based on vehicle size. That's a thing now. And Brian updates us on both his induction cooktop and his heat pump. All that and so much more in this week's edition of the Clean Energy Show. How are you?
I'm great. So I'm busy cooking with induction. Well, not at this moment.
No, you went out for lunch, you bastard, to a fancy restaurant.
We went to the Bliss Bistro. It's lovely.
Do you mind? I got to ask what you ate. What'd you order?
It was a fancy grilled cheese sandwich that had like slices of apple and something else on it. Yeah, it was
interesting.
Great.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the induction cooktop is working and it's great, but the electrician came back and finished up the work, and so then I had to put the drawers back. There's drawers that go underneath the cooktop.
Right.
Because it's just installed in the counter. And I put the drawer in and I closed it, and, a little puff of air comes out of it as you close the drawer, and I could smell this faint smell of natural gas.
Well, that's not good.
No, that's not good.
What are you going to do?
Well, we got the whole line taken out, but,
you did?
I sort of did some research. Is this going to kill us? Is this going to explode our house? And I decided that it wouldn't, because it, you really had to put your nose like right near the pipe to be able to smell it. So this was an infinitesimally small gas leak that, that we just, like, it was capped and everything. It shouldn't have done that, but it was. So, I decided it wasn't going to explode the house or anything, but we just had to have somebody come in and just take out the gas line just to be sure.
So it's all good now?
It's all good now. But, I think one of the things we've discussed on the show is that, methane leaks, natural gas leaks are one of the major causes of global warming, because that going up into the atmosphere is bad.
But it's not healthy for you either, we also talked about on the show.
It's not healthy for you. And you Google, what are the symptoms of too much breathing in of natural gas? And, you can start to feel lightheaded and nauseous and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite there, but, I kept sticking my head in the cabinet to smell this pipe. So I think I was getting a little bit woozy from it.
Oh, well.
But anyway, but it's working. The induction is great. I really like it.
So how much did you go out and buy some new special, because you have to have a special cookware for that? Did you go
the only thing we needed was a large frying pan. Our previous large frying pan had a copper bottom, so that one didn't work. But all of our other cookware was already induction ready. Just good stainless steel works.
Is that right? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we had.
If you put a magnet to it, it works, right?
As long as it'll take a magnet, it'll work on an induction cooktop. So it was just the large frying pan we had to replace, and we've done that, and it's great. So the other update in terms of the heat pump. So I'm now running my house off of an air source heat pump for heating and cooling, and I'm very pleased with that. It's been cooling the house on hot days. But there was a nice article in Clean Technica this week. Heat pump emissions compared with gas water heaters. Anyway, now is the time to go all in on heat pumps. This is from Clean Technica. A new analysis shows that in all 48 states in the lower 48 of the U.S., replacing a gas furnace with a heat pump could reduce climate pollution by up to 93%. So the thing that I was concerned about, taking out my gas cooktop, putting in an induction that runs off electricity, we live in a place that has a dirty grid. There's coal on the grid. There's natural gas on the grid. So I was kind of worried I might actually be increasing my carbon footprint by putting in the induction cooktop. But based on this article from Clean Technica, I think that's not the case. It's very similar to, I think, with an electric vehicle. You can charge an electric vehicle off of a dirty grid, and it's still cleaner. Your emissions are still lower because the electric vehicles are just so much more efficient. And that's the same thing with a heat pump. They're so much more efficient that, I believe, still lowering my carbon footprint, even though I'm powering this cooktop off a dirty grid.
That's good. Do you enjoy cooking with it? Do you notice a noise at all? Like sometimes they have a buzz on them?
Yeah, it just seems to depend, but occasionally there's a little bit of a buzzing noise. But it's a small price to pay for not blowing ourselves up with
or breathing. I think blowing up is one thing, but breathing it in is definitely something that is an issue. You're doing it not only for climate considerations, for your personal effect on that, but also for your health.
But this study is really good news because it means that really everybody in the United States, and of course we're in Canada, but this study, the lower 48, that includes North Dakota, that includes Minnesota, these really cold climates. And even in those cold climates, going to a heat pump will lower your carbon footprint. And that's an air source heat pump. If you go ground source, then it's even better.
Right. And that you ruled out because of expense, right?
Yeah. And, I think that those will kind of slowly fade away because they are so much more expensive. And as the grid gets cleaner, air source heat pumps, I think, are going to...
air source heat pumps are getting better.
And they're getting better. More efficient. They can go down to lower temperatures.
Yes, I just got back from the dentist, and I don't have any clean energy stories, but my teeth, Brian, are clean. Which gives me energy.
Well, your microphone's in the way, so I can't confirm that.
Well, there's nothing stuck in them. Let's put it that way. I won't say they're clean. We're on Threads, the new social media abomination from Mark Zuckerberg, evil villain.
Yeah, that'll fix everything.
Yeah, well, we're on there just in case, just staking our territory. It's like, putting a flag up at the North Pole or on the moon. You gotta stake your territory. So we're there. Clean Energy Pod, if you want to follow us, and we'll see what happens. But Twitter has gone to crap. The person running it has gone insane and is just more offensive all the time. I think it's less offensive to be on Trump's platform. I think you can go over there and have a better time.
Well, maybe we should sign up.
I'm running across lots. Yeah, we didn't stake our place there. I'm running across lots of people going on vacations in their electric cars, their new electric cars. And I'm surprised by how many people are posting detailed accounts of them, of their vacations on the Facebook pages for various cars. I, of course, have been reading, I think, the ID4 and the Chevy Bolt and the Tesla ones, which Tesla's nothing new, but because everything's pretty much the same now for Tesla owners. But for other people, well, the third-party chargers in Western Canada, in the entirety of our very large country, they're telling us that they're not exceeding 45 kilowatts, even if they're rated for, say, 100, 150, or even 350. No one is getting more than 45 kilowatts. And I've read this over and over and over again, and it seems like a conspiracy. So I just picked out one person's account, and I just want to read it to you. It's from Keith Taylor. He writes, mostly up to 200 kilowatt CCS chargers will only deliver 45, particularly from Alberta to Ontario. Don't trust a better route planner charge time, or you'll be disappointed because it'll estimate based on what the charger should do for your car, not what it's actually doing. So Petro-Canada, Co-op, which we have around here, and Electrify America and Electrify Canada are all using the same charging equipment and have similar problems with it. Keep an eye on the app in your car. Sometimes the chargers trip offline. So if you have remote access to your car via your phone to check on your charging, they say you should keep checking on it because it could trip off while you're having lunch or something. Or toasted cheese and tomato sandwich.
And if that happens with a Tesla charger, you will get an alert on your app.
That's good. It's automatic. Well, it's not necessarily. That should be a thing everywhere. I think it is on my phone. I think it is with us. You can turn it on, but I don't usually have it on. Okay, so if a charger doesn't work, for an isolation timeout or something like that, give it a few tries and make sure that the cable isn't being strained sideways. These faults can sometimes be overcome. Interesting. This is unfortunate nuances that I hope they work out, Brian, because, you don't have to worry about these stupid little things. If you spend hours on PlugShare, you might be able to find stations or particular terminals that work a bit faster, but it's tedious and often doesn't help. Spend a few minutes checking the chargers you plan to use on PlugShare before setting off driving, because there are more than you need that will not be working. And some places don't have cell phone service. I was in a place, unexpectedly, the other trip I took, that didn't have cell phone service. I didn't think there was any holes anymore, but there are.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in the mountains, okay? So that could be tricky. We did all this with cell phone apps and a credit card, no RFID cards. I forgot my RFID card, which led to my, I don't know what to do at the charger story a couple of weeks ago, and it worked fine. So yeah, I paid $20 for a Flow RF. Now it's just basically a credit card that you just hold up to the thing and it reads your account just by reading it. The Flow app is one of the best to load cash into, which I found true too. And it works with other networks. I didn't know that. And I'm not exactly sure because they don't really say what networks it works with, but I'm going to look into that some more because if I could have just one app for my non-Tesla, that would be cool. I've got a Chevy Bolt if you're new to the show. And always every week there are people new to the show. Fully loaded with a hitch carrier, we averaged 18 kilowatts or kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and 400 kilometer range in 94 was trusted. So, but Brian, everybody always says it's been a great trip. They talk about these ridiculous problems that you don't have with gas, or Teslas, but everybody's happy. They're loving their trips. I wish I could do one.
It always feels great to drive electric. We've got some mail here. Hi, James and Brian. Hopefully you didn't cover this in the show, but I'm wondering if there's an update on how well the rechargeable mosquito repellent device that James purchased is working. I am particularly delicious to the little bloodsuckers here in North Carolina. If I don't keep moving when I'm outside, they are on me within seconds. I'm particularly allergic to at least one of the species, so any energy-friendly deterrence would be wonderful. Thanks again for a great show. Travis in Hillsboro, North Carolina.
Thank you, Travis, and for taking the time to email us, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. I have here, if you are watching on YouTube, the actual Thermocell device. Now, this is the one I bought for about $50 on sale. It is electronic. It is not heavy. I expected it to be heavy because, like a Bluetooth speaker would be heavy because it would have a thick battery in there and a magnet, but it's actually quite light and flimsy. Basically, it's got, I'll show you. It's got this magnetic little lid on it. Okay. And this is the refill here. There's a little refill that fills with 3 cc's of fluid. This is like a 12-hour refill.
Bug juice. Bug hating juice. And that is a hard wick on top. And basically, this lid connects to the battery there and heats up the top part of the wick there. And then that gets hot. And the interesting thing is the old ones, I've used these for 10 years, these Thermocell deals, they'll clear a space for a patio, like say a 12-foot diameter. So maybe you put it on a patio table, you can all sit at a patio table. I found that the other ones where you put a replaceable expendable pad until they were blue, and then when the color faded from them, they were done. I felt that you smelled those, and I don't smell this. It's in a liquid form instead of something that gets heated. Anyway, there you can see that it's heating up, and it takes 15 minutes to heat up. Well, it takes 15 minutes for the mosquitoes to be fully gone from your area. So it'll show you when it's mosquito free, and that's great. Now, for years, I've been using one that I had to use little butane cartridges and go to the store and buy some more and throw them in the garbage, little butane cartridges for this specific thing. And, there's no mosquitoes in my house. I better turn it off. I smell nothing. I smell a little bit of heat, but I don't smell anything. So they work. But Travis, if you're walking around, this isn't going to work for you. I did sort of see a backpack one
where
Oh, yeah.
you wear it on your backpack, but you strap it to your backpack strap. But really, I think the idea that the way these things work is they have to be in the area. It takes time for the mosquito has to come sniff and say, I'm not going in that area. And the chemicals are safe. They're FDA approved. And they're basically, as I said, like last week or 2 weeks ago, they're a pollen from a flower that it's been synthesized. So it's like fake pollen from a flower that is deadly to mosquitoes, or they don't like them. So no, we use it on the patio, and they've always been great. And the fact that you can recharge an electricity just goes to show that, electricity is taking over everything. So really happy with it. And I recommend you get one for the cottage or, well, wherever you are.
Yeah, well, we were out of the cottage and it's been so dry out there, unusually dry.
Is that right?
It has not rained. So the mosquitoes are worse when it's been wet, and it just hasn't been wet.
Well, they're terrible here. Terrible. It's been a terrible year. Travis, thank you for writing us. Any other thoughts you have, Travis, on anything, even my mosquito fighting methods? Give us an email or contact us in the show notes. There's all kinds of ways. Brian, did you know that Hillsborough, where Travis is from, is a haven for artists and writers? It's quite a little town he lives in.
That's interesting. Well, Election Profit Makers, a podcast I listened to and mentioned before on the show, it's from North Carolina.
Well, that's very nice. Oh, by the way, this lasts for 5.5 hours per charge, this particular one. And it's Thermocell. You didn't know about them, right? Till I mentioned you didn't know about this type of product.
No, I'd never heard of this at all. All I'd heard of was the propane ones that suck the mosquitoes in and kill them. That was the only one that I
We actually have one of those because our friend Jay had a garage sale about 10 years ago. I've never used it. It's sitting under a pile of junk.
I'm sitting in a chair I bought at Jay's garage sale from 10 years ago.
Yes, the best garage sales. Honestly.
Yeah.
He'll move merchandise like crazy. I can't wait till he moves again. I'd travel to the city where he lives just to take part in his garage sale.
Okay, a story here from Bloomberg. So, scientists in China are doing an experiment in the Tibetan Plateau that could help preserve thousands of jobs, though it's a temporary solution as global temperatures rise. So this is from Bloomberg, and I alluded to this off the beginning of the show. They are out there in the mountains on the glaciers, and they're literally putting down white plastic to stop the glaciers from melting.
That's just... it's come to that, I guess, is what my thoughts are.
It's desperation. So they know that this is not a permanent solution. But, as the story says here, for decades, this area has supported the lives of tens of thousands of people who live around it. The glacier's meltwater provides drinking water and helps to generate hydropower, while the majestic views of the Tibetan Plateau can attract more than 200,000 tourists a year, fueling an industry that keeps over 2,000 people employed. So the idea with this, you put out these white plastic sheets, they reflect 93% of the sunlight energy that hits them. It's going to just delay basically the ending of these glaciers. So they will eventually go away, but this should work in preserving them for a little bit of extra time. So this is not new. This has been done before. European ski resorts apparently do this. They've been using white blankets to protect their snow for a couple of decades now. So, but this is a new material. They're trying it out with a new material, and it can also be used as small particles that could be dropped by drones. It sounds like they haven't done this yet, but you can basically turn the same thing into confetti, I guess. And you drop this confetti of the white, cellulose. It's a cellulose material. So they're thinking they can drop it from drones in hard to reach areas and, cover the glaciers that way.
This is not your backyard. This is mountaintops. This is very large scale. Blanketing to preserve something desperately.
Difficult to reach, and apparently it's not going to work on all kinds of glaciers. Some glaciers just move too much for this to work, so it's got to be on kind of smaller glaciers that don't move that much. But, if it can preserve them for a few more years, why not?
Okay, I don't know, because it seems like a lot of work to preserve a big chunk of ice. That's why. That's why not.
Yes, well, I don't know. Maybe the polar bears would be.
I mean, are we going to
interested
coat
in
the
this.
ice caps of the polar ice caps with plastic or giant mirrors? I mean, how desperate are we to geoengineer our way out of this situation?
Well, everything's on the table.
It is, and this isn't a far off futuristic idea. This is actually being done, you say. So 2,000 people are employed in that place.
And once the glaciers are gone, a lot of that's going to disappear.
I guess that ties in with the ski resorts because, if they're making money off of it, they're motivated to do whatever they can to try and prevent that.
It's definitely been a problem in Europe for the ski resorts.
It's time for What Do You Think?
What do you think?
Brian, this is where I ask you questions. Well, your opinion. Because sometimes I just don't know. I don't know, okay? In this space of clean energy and transportation, sometimes I just don't know what to think.
I'm here to guide you.
I turn to you. Tesla told the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, that the United States could go all electric by 2030. See, the EPA went and asked the automakers, what do you think? Just like the name of the segment. And Tesla said, hey, we can go all electric. The country should be able to go all electric by 2030. There's enough batteries. There's enough manufacturing. There's enough everything. But Tesla would settle for 69% of new car sales. Okay. This is when they say go all electric, they mean, the number of new cars being sold. Now, the EPA is finalizing its 2027 to 2032 vehicle standard emissions limit rules and taking comments from everybody. And guess who's not happy? Not surprisingly, Toyota.
Yeah.
But even GM has piped up and said, it's too harsh. We can't do it. It's impossible. It's putting a strain on things. Boo-hoo. Well, get your crap together. You've had years watching Tesla. Now get your crap together.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a big company like that, you're obviously going to want as much flexibility as possible. But, it's time to put up and shut up, especially you, Toyota. Get with the program.
Toyota blasted a Biden administration plan to squelch auto pollution, saying it would compel aggressive and unrealistic sales of electric vehicles that strain critical mineral supplies. In comments filed with the federal government, the automakers warned proposed emission curbs for cars and light trucks are overly optimistic and discriminate against plug-in hybrid sales. Screw plug-in hybrids.
Yes, they should be discriminated against.
So, yeah. Also, I just wanted to do your opinion on EV sales, because the Q2 EV sales are out, and I'm starting to get a little bit pessimistic. Let me go through a couple of them. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, which has been out for years now, I guess they're selling about on the pace of maybe 31,000 of those yearly, but the wait time is still 1 or 2 years, I think.
Yep. And
the Ioniq 6, they're on the pace to sell like it's newer. It's 9,000. So it's, green vehicles now make up 20% of Hyundai sales. Kia sells less than 1,000 Nero EVs per month in the United States. I should point that out, in the United States. That's pretty disappointing. I mean, because you like the car. It's a nice car.
Yeah. The problem is always they're just not making enough of them, but, they're still losing money probably on everyone. So they don't really want to make more. And we just could be in a situation where, I don't know, Tesla's just so far ahead where they're already producing them at scale and making decent profits on them. It's going to be just very hard for these other automakers to compete, because especially in the US with the Inflation Reduction Act and the tax credits that are available, like the Tesla cars are getting cheaper. They're starting to build the Mexico factory. So the even cheaper Tesla will be coming out in a couple of years. I don't know. It's not looking great for the legacy automakers to be able to transition profitably, because, they're competing against an entity that's already profitable. Yeah. And, Volkswagen's doing quite well in Europe. They're selling lots of electric vehicles in Europe, and BYD is doing really good in China. They're selling lots of electric vehicles. Tesla's the only one that's kind of doing well all over the world and making enough of them to do well all over the world.
I saw today that Tesla signed a truce in China that they wouldn't have price wars.
Yeah, and then it was then retracted. Did you miss that?
No, I did miss the retraction. I had to go to the dentist. I can't see everything.
No, this is a weird story from a few days ago. All of the EV makers in China got together and said, hey, we got to calm down on these price changes. Consumers are getting freaked out because the prices are fluctuating too much, driven mostly by Tesla lowering their prices. But then a couple of days later, there was another press release saying, we're not going to do that. I get like it's too much like price fixing, I think. When it first came out, that's what I thought. Well,
Yeah,
this sounds
me
like
too.
price fixing.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, it's China. Maybe the rules are different there. But it did come out a couple of days later that the whole idea has just been canceled.
So you're right. VW is selling quite a few vehicles, 120,000 ID4s per year in the U.S. That's the rate they're at now, which is 571,000 per year worldwide. So that's 500,000. But, Tesla this year, 2 million, right?
Yeah, close to 2 million for Tesla in 2023.
So there was so much talk about, look out, Tesla, VW is coming for you and you can't possibly keep up to them. Well, your prediction for when that happens, because it seems like, Teslas are getting cheaper and it's just not going to happen soon.
Yeah, Toyota is still the world's number one automaker, but that's not going to last.
No. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to a story from Power Magazine. And I don't know why I keep talking about these ridiculous futuristic stories, because it's
summer. Come on. A little bit of sci-fi for the entertainment.
But this is another experimental technology that is years, perhaps decades, perhaps never, ever, ever going to happen. But I thought that it was interesting. They have now figured out how to beam power from space. So the idea being that you could deploy solar panels in space where there's plenty of room and plenty of sunshine. Presumably they're more efficient in space, right? You don't have the atmosphere blocking any of the sunlight. So this has been a successful experiment from Caltech, where they put up this satellite. They put it up on a SpaceX mission. It was deployed. This is a kind of a small, lightweight solar array. This is not going to power, like a whole building or anything. This is just an experiment at this point. But they can collect electricity, beam it back to Earth with a microwave transmitter, and they have successfully received the power in California. So they know that this works. They know that this lightweight aspect of it works, because this is only going to work if it's small and lightweight. The concern was that maybe it would be too flimsy to actually operate. So, this may never happen, but it's interesting nonetheless that maybe someday we'll have gigantic solar arrays in space and they can beam the power back down to Earth. Now, the answer is probably just put up some solar panels in a field.
The sun beams itself down to Earth. I don't understand this. This is so stupid. At the expense, I'm sure you'll get more power from, 1 square foot up there than you would down here, but come on. It makes no sense. This is stupid. Who put money into this? I mean, unless you can beam it to the other side of the planet, where it's dark. And why would you want to do that? Because that would just wake people up and burn mosquitoes. So none of this makes sense to me. It would be easier to put an underwater cable between continents than it would be to put a solar installation in space, which creates a lot of carbon dioxide and emissions, greenhouse gases, putting rockets up there. I don't understand.
James, are you an enemy of science? Is that your problem?
I'm not an enemy of science. I'm not. I'm an enemy of stupid ideas. And I think this is a stupid idea. And I've always thought it was a stupid idea.
Maybe it could be used to power your defibrillator.
Maybe. My doctor, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a beep there. Doctor, I was at the doctor the other day, and she said, we ran you through the algorithm. You've got a 21% chance of having a heart attack in the next 10 years.
Oh.
I said, I like those odds. It'll probably happen on my podcast, but not bad odds at all. That's better than, like 90% chance of not making it to Wednesday. So that's kind of what I thought my odds were. Anyway, we're working on it. We're working on it, Brian. We've got a team of people x-raying me and scanning me, and we're trying to figure out how to make me better. To be a better host of the Clean Energy Show, ultimately.
Well, let's just download your consciousness into an AI.
Well, it would be a small chip. Let's put it that way. Well, Brian, we talked about shipping on the show a lot because it is probably one of the harder things to solve when we look to get to the world to net zero by 2050. Shipping, long distance air travel, cement making, steel making, some of those things will be solved by hydrogen, and maybe shipping will too. We'll see. But right now, they all got together, the shipping industry, and they have this annual meeting. This is from the BBC, the annual meeting of the International Maritime Organization, or the IMO. These countries agreed to cut emissions by 20% by 2030, which is, how are you going to do that? I don't know how they're going to do that. And 70% by 2040, which is pretty significant and not that far off when you're talking about shipping technology, which hasn't changed that much, compared to 2008 levels, and 100% by around, this is quoting, quote unquote, around 2050. So some small island nations and richer countries had called for a 50% reduction by 2030, 96% by 2040, but they did not agree on that. So shipping is a highly polluting industry. We've said this before on the show. 3% of global emissions come from shipping. They put the worst oil products they can in there and then burn them freely, except maybe not in some ports won't allow it, but yeah. It's going to require new regulations and infrastructure and fuels, wind power. And when I say wind power, I mean going back to sails, like you've talked about that on the show. We have talked about that. Yeah. That seems crazy to go back to sailing, but it'd be hard sails and computer controlled technology maybe is a bit different. Green hydrogen, of course, is something that's being talked about, as is green methanol. Tech is still emerging on that, though. That's, it's not going to be around by 2030, I don't think. And battery electric boats, but, possibly combined with wind and solar. We'll see. Yeah.
Maybe they could tow like a giant solar farm behind the boat or something like that.
Hey, there's an idea. That sounds crazy, but it's not as crazy as space solar farms beaming down to Earth. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's an idea. I mean, you solar farms float. They have floating solar farms floating on oceans. We mentioned recently.
But also, one of my favorite statistics we've mentioned before on the show about all this is that I believe it's 40% of worldwide shipping is to ship fossil fuels. So once we stop digging up fossil fuels, shipping them around the world, refining them and burning them,
that's crazy.
That will eliminate 40% of worldwide shipping.
As long as I don't participate in Prime Day this year, it'll go down when fossil fuels go away, which a lot of people think won't go away. But anyway, I think it's big news. They got together and they're actually saying, hey, we don't know how we're going to do it, but let's do it. Let's give it the old college try and see if we can hit these targets. So I hope they do, and I hope innovation comes around, and I hope the rich countries find ways to fund some of this.
Okay, so a story now from Montreal. This is from the Globe and Mail here in Canada. And you'll know that I was in the UK recently. And of course, the thing you always notice when you go to the UK, you go to Europe, is, oh man, the cars are so small here. They're so much smaller on average. And over here in North America, of course, our cars have just been bigger and bigger. So what do you do about that problem? Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of will at any kind of a national political level to just mandate that cars shouldn't be so damn big. In Montreal, they're just going to start charging more for bigger cars for parking permits. So this is, I think, an interesting idea. The new rules replace one that priced the parking permits previously based on engine size. So they were already kind of doing this. The larger the engine size, the more expensive your permit. But they've shifted now to weight. And that's a statistic that's easily available for all car models. So the new rules are based on weight, which they are using as a rough indicator of size. So owners of the lightest gas-powered vehicles will pay $115 for a parking permit. while those with the heaviest vehicles, $205, an 80% premium. There's two levels in between that. And the costs are the same for electric vehicles as well. It's based on the same kind of scale, but the thresholds are just set higher because they're recognizing that electric cars are inherently heavier because of the batteries, But it works out basically the same, it sounds like.
But the whole idea is to discourage what some people call obesity in cars, and the preference for cars. So why not just exempt? Why not? Netherlands had, well, not Netherlands, was it Norway? Norway had a lot of policy that got them up to like 90% sales of EVs.
Yeah,
and
you can park your EV for free for a while, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, why not do that here? Especially at this point of the transition, this seems like a good point to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you maybe don't want to encourage car use in general. And this difference in cost, I don't think it's going to convince anybody not to buy a gigantic SUV. It's another $80, $100. I think people are just going to do it. But I don't know. It's some kind of action on this. The average weight of a vehicle has gone up by about 25% just since 1980.
And that's not really including electric vehicles. There's not very many of them on the global fleet yet. It's a pretty small percentage of them, so it's not going to move that needle. We want bigger vehicles.
That's just what, it's come to here in North America. But I thought this other statistic was really interesting here. Larger vehicles, of course, take up more space on the road, which can worsen the congestion. So research cited during the debate noted that this borough in Montreal had effectively lost as many as 10,000 street parking spaces
because of size.
Grew in size.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, but if you think about it, that makes total sense. I mean, obviously bigger cars on street parking are just going to take up way more space.
Wow. I often think about what the future holds for robotaxis and what that's going to be like. And I had a crazy idea. Speaking of crazy ideas, I don't like crazy ideas, okay? Because a lot of people come up to me on the street and say, I hear you have a podcast. Here's my crazy idea. Put sales on cars, stupid things all the time. But, what if we had cars that were half a lane wide? Robotaxis that were half a lane wide. If you were only carrying one person and everything was automated, you could double up traffic in one lane and reduce congestion, or maybe even one person behind another person. Because you start to see a lot of these cars being made now, these 2- and 3-wheel cars, 3-wheel cars that are quite small, especially in China and India. Maybe those have a place in other parts of the world as well, and maybe regulations change where you're allowed to drive side by side or something. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
There's no solar panels in space, though. I'll tell you that much. It's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Brian, I'm sure you were happy to know that Mercedes-Benz adopted the Tesla NACS standard for their charging port and, the charging adapter. They're the first German automaker to do it. So you're happy, yes?
Yeah, and really we're at the point now where I think here in North America, you pretty much have to get on board. There's just too many dominoes have fallen, and ACS, I believe, will be the standard in North America.
We charted in Germany last week. I'd like to say hello to our German listeners.
Hello.
Guten Tag. I took German in university 4 times for 2 classes. Oh, I thought in a French-speaking country of Canada that I could take as a second language German and it'd be a lot easier. Well,
yeah, I guess not.
EVs take 59.2% of Sweden's new car sales. So Sweden's coming along. I mean, they're past the S-curve. Hell, they're practically at the top of the S-curve. They're shooting to the top.
You could call it the Sweden curve.
I've got a new segment for you. The boys in the lab came up with this. This is This Week in Nuclear. Yeah, nuclear news. People like their nuclear news. Microsoft is exploring the potential deployment of large numbers of advanced nuclear units, according to S&P Global. By the way, we're still in the lightning round. Okay. This is a segment within a segment. Just if you're new to the show and you're confused, Microsoft wants to use large numbers, not just a couple, large numbers of little nuclear units, SMRs, and to power their, you need gigawatts of electricity for data centers. So, yeah, that's what they're thinking about. I mean, a lot of these data centers are going with renewable energy now, right? Their solar and wind projects are going up around.
Yeah, well, they need a lot of energy. So, you got to go with whatever is cheapest. So I'd be shocked if nuclear would be the cheapest option for that.
I would be shocked as well. And sometimes I just can't figure things. GE, Hitachi Nuclear Energy, said it is working on deployment of 3 additional SMRs at the Darlington new nuclear power project in Ontario, Canada. So they had decided they're going to do 1. Now there's going to be 3 additional ones, actually. So 4. So and we're the only country doing this, Brian. This is going to be the first grid-connected, grid-scale SMR, well, in North America at least. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this. I'm very, very skeptical on price.
Yeah, and of course, this same government canceled a whole bunch of clean energy projects as they came to power, costing cost a couple $100 million just to cancel those projects. This does not seem like a good financial decision.
From the New York Times, scientists in Chicago are calling it underground climate change. You heard me. Underground climate change. Basements and train tunnels are constantly leaking heat in Chicago, causing the land to sink and straining building foundations. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. There's so much leaking of heat that, the soil is just becoming too warm and it's just causing buildings to crumble, and that's causing money. So they're calling it underground climate change. Time for a CS Fast Fact. Clean Energy Show Fast Fact. When temperatures climb, the ions in a car battery speed up. Once that happens, they often have trouble attaching to the anode or cathode. The pressure and speed can also create small cracks, which slow chemical reactions and make for less usable battery life. So heat, bad. We live in a place that in the wintertime gets down to -40. And batteries do okay here as long as you don't let them freeze. But in other words, keep your car plugged in. So if you live in extreme heat, it is best to keep your car, your EV, plugged in, and it will cool the battery. Some cars don't do it very much unless you plug it in. My car is one of those. It'll do it a little bit, but it won't do it very much. So if you're in Phoenix and it's 115 and your car is not your garage is not air conditioned, and I don't know why it would be, but maybe if you work out there, but that seems like a rare thing. I've seen heated garages, but in air conditioning garages, I just stick an air conditioner in the window. But the point is, take care of your car because heat is bad for all cars. Brian, Saharan dust is moving across the Atlantic Ocean and could reach South Florida. At least as of a few days ago, they were worried about this, resulting in hotter days and less rain, meteorologists said.
Is this retaliation for our Canadian forest fire smoke going all the way to Europe?
I don't know, but at least they have something else to worry about to distract them from our smoke. So as of Sunday afternoon, the dust was approaching South Florida. Earlier satellite images showed patches of dust over Puerto Rico. So yeah, the world is really, there's things happening that we never even,
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's kind of unsettling. Summer heat waves killed 61,000 people in Europe last year. See, Brian, it takes a long time to tally up and go through the stats to look at the normal death rate and the actual death rate of places and attribute them to weather, particularly heat waves. So researchers suggest that strategies to cope with higher temperatures aren't keeping pace with global warming. And we talked last week about Vancouver, Canada, giving out air conditioners to the people.
Yeah. And I imagine it's a similar problem in lots of places in Europe. There just aren't air conditioners because they haven't traditionally needed them or even necessarily wanted them. But now it's getting to be critical, deadly.
Yeah, well, go get a heat pump installed, Europe, and you'll get some cool cooling, just like Brian's enjoying this summer for the first time in some time. Commercial scale wind farm off of New Jersey coast has been approved. The project in the water southeast of Atlantic City marks only the third major wind farm authorized by the Biden administration. And another CES fast fact, MPGE, mile per gallon electric. The E is small, the MPG is big. So MPGE, and I know a lot of people don't know this who are listening to the show, is a unit of measure used by the EPA to represent electric vehicle fuel economy in a common unit with gas-powered vehicles. In other words, you want to compare the fuel efficiency of a gas vehicle in the terms that you're used to with the new EVs. So 33.7 kilowatt hours of electricity are equal to that of the energy contained in just 1 gallon of gasoline. So that is basically,
half a car battery.
So in modern, because it's efficient, the EV goes a lot further than what you would expect. It doesn't go just a little distance. So in model year 2023, the highest rated EPA combined fuel economy for gasoline vehicles was about 60 miles per gallon, while two electric vehicle models, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 and the Lucid Air, achieved the 140 mile per gallon equivalent MPG. So yeah, 2 gallons, but at that efficiency,
yeah,
I mean, it's almost like a motorcycle. It's like you can go a long way with it, right? Because you're so efficient. Of course,
this is the advantage that gasoline cars have had for the last 100 years, is there's a tremendous amount of energy contained in a gallon of gasoline. The problem is, of course, you got to burn it and kill the planet.
The UK grid could pay you to charge your EV in the future, not just to store power for them, but to actually choose to charge your EV, say at night or on sunny days when there's an excess of, clean energy. So they could pay you to charge your EV then. In fact, there's talk about paying about £4.50 to charge up, which would be half of your charge, I would imagine. So the UK's national grid sees connected EVs providing as much as 28 gigawatts of storage capacity. That's 20 nuclear reactors of storage by 2035. And we know from listening to the show, we have all kinds of stories about how useful storage is to the grid. I don't quite understand all of it, but I know grids like storage. They like the instantaneousness of depending on that or storing it when necessary. So that would more than double the total battery storage available to cushion swings in supply, as I just said. And they also see EV drivers paid to charge when the grid has an overabundance of renewable power. So, the grids it's going to be a different relationship we have with electricity in the future. We're going to be paid to do things at certain times, and, fleets of buses will be making money that they wouldn't normally make. They'll be all part of the grid. We're all going to be part of the grid together.
Yeah, and this is happening already. Power prices in the UK sometimes go negative. There are virtual power plants where, several home batteries can store energy and supply to the grid, and then you get paid for that too.
And finally this week from Bloomberg, Brazil's national government announced last week that the rate of deforestation in the Amazon dropped about 34% in the first 6 months of this year compared to the same period last year. The decrease coincided with the new administration of leftist President Da Silva, who took office in January and pledged to protect the rainforest and reverse ballooning deforestation. Da Silva's ascendance follows the controversial tenure of far-right President Bolsonaro, who lost his bid for another term and can't do it again until 2030. So Bolsonaro eliminated some of Brazil's environmental protections and encouraged agricultural production and mining in the Amazon. And illegal deforestation is often caused by people taking land and raising it to sell for soybean farming and cattle grazing, and a small minority of farmers is responsible for most of the destruction, which I didn't know. Just a small number of people wrecking the planet, Brian. It's the same old story. That is our show for this week. Take the time to contact us. Wherever you're from, whatever language you speak, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com is our email address. It's right there in your show notes if you can't remember it. And there's other ways to contact us. We're on Threads. Check us out on Threads. Well, follow us on Threads, just in case. It's a backup plan. We've got a YouTube channel for special features, and our vlog, our live video podcast is there as well. And check out the store, where you can get a fancy hat like I have, or all kinds of t-shirts and things like that. And, you know, if you're new to the show, subscribe on your podcast app to get our show every week. We'll see you next time.
See you next week.